I'm back, the headless YouTuber doing headless planty things without my trusty Pug Pudge today because he is being a very naughty boy. But I am back with part 2 of the lazy moss pole, which I am super excited to share with you guys just because it's something that I've just been like, I've just been so passionate about it for the last few months. If you haven't seen part 1 in this video, please look for this thumbnail and watch it first so that it makes a lot more sense, because I'm not really going to be going through a lot of the things that I talked about in the first video in terms of the construction of the lazy pole, why I use it, why I'm switching out all of my moss poles to these kinds of poles. So definitely watch that before you finish this video. But if you have watched it, welcome back. Just to kind of brief you, I have been twiddling with this lazy pole since the beginning of December. And I feel like it's been trial and error. And even though I'm loving the design, some of my plants are still dormant for the winter, so I haven't been able to like document a ton of growth or anything, but I can just say off the bat, in terms of functionality, I'm sold. The purpose of the lazy pole is to be lazy. And honestly, that really was all that it was. Where it came from was I had this plant, my philodendron soderini. This one was growing on a regular sphagnum moss pole. It quickly outgrew that, and I just couldn't be bothered with removing it and getting it onto a new moss pole. I didn't even have all the materials that I needed for a new moss pole. So I had a bunch of this net, and so what I did was basically just added the net to the moss pole and I just wrapped it on there. I think it would be one of my favorites videos. Yeah, essentially I just hooked on one of these nets to the sphagnum moss pole and called it a day for the extension. And I was like, and it worked so well. The thing outgrew that so fast. I got nice roots and I was able to just remove it from the lazy pole so easily. And I started over, I chopped the bottom and I got it onto this lazy pole. And I'm just like, why have I been making my life so difficult all this time when it could have just been this? In this video, I'm gonna talk about some of the pros and cons of the lazy pole that I've observed over the last few months, and just kind of give you guys an idea of what to expect or what to look out for, things to keep in mind before you decide to just switch all of your poles. Even if you're loving the idea, I definitely would just start off by maybe doing 1 or 2 plants on a lazy pole just to see if it's for you. We all have different environmental conditions and we all have different care for our plants. So just because it works for me doesn't mean that you're gonna love it too. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the pros of the lazy pole. Obviously, so easy to construct. Literally, you can set one of these up in like 15-20 seconds. It's so fast. All you need is net. You don't even need a bamboo stake for like your smaller plants. You just need Velcro ties, moss, and if you're gonna use a bamboo stake, you can use a zip tie or you can use another Velcro tie if you don't want to buy more plastic things. And it's just fast. And honestly, it is effective. It is working. You can see right there, there is a nice little root starting to form. And I can see some roots also starting to form down at the bottom. I don't want to remove this moss because I am trying to document the progress of it as much as I can in case I put out a lazy pole part 3 video, which I think I will, and you'll understand later in this video. But anyway, pros, super fast to assemble. You don't need as many materials as using the regular moss pole, and you can reuse all of the things that you use to construct your lazy pole for other plants, and you don't need to cut away anything. You don't need to waste anything. The moss is super easy to remove if you just wet the whole thing completely. It just like falls right off. I like the fact that I'm not being wasteful with my materials, not only because like, you know, this hobby collectively, we are using a lot of plastic, we are using a lot of resources that are not sustainable. And if I can avoid having to rebuy materials as much as possible, I will. not just for the environmental reasons, but because I don't have a ton of money to just keep buying stuff. That's also one reason why I decided to use these poles. I did talk about my inspiration behind using these kinds of poles in my first video. I'm not gonna go into that again, but I can't really afford $20 plus shipping per pole for every plant I need it for. I knew that I loved the design of those other poles, but I needed something that would work for me financially, something that I could construct myself with materials that are accessible to me. And this is just what works. Easy to assemble, easy to reuse your materials, easy to disassemble. I will say off the bat, I would not use this outside of a greenhouse, and we will go into the cons now. So the cons are that it's not that pretty. Not that like moss poles are all that pretty anyway, but this is significantly uglier, I would say, if I have to be completely honest. Another thing is that this moss inside of my greenhouses, which are anywhere between 70 to 90%, it stays damp for a maximum of 3 days. So if you are not a regular sprayer, this might not be for you. Or if you don't have high humidity greenhouses, this probably isn't for you again. Although regular moss poles don't stay wet either, in my opinion. The outer core, it dries out super fast. That inner core stays pretty damp for who knows how long. But really, like, the point is that you want all of it to stay damp. So those kinds of moss poles never really worked for me anyway. I can understand if maybe you have like a backyard or like an actual greenhouse where you can just go in with a hose every few days. But you know, I'm growing everything indoors. I don't have the ability to just spray with a hose. So yeah, I do use these for my indoor greenhouses, but I would likely never use this for a plant out in my living area, solely for the fact that it's butt ugly, and also it would just dry out too fast. But in this video, I am going to do a tutorial on a different kind of moss pole that my friends and I have been twiddling around with, again inspired by the poles that I talked about in part 1, and I will show you what one of those looks like. I need to talk about this pole first. So this is the pole that a lot of the hobbyists in Singapore have been using. They've been using a clear back with the netting in the front. There is someone who did a half moon moss pole tutorial on Instagram, and I will also link that in the description. It's also linked in the part 1 of this video. It just works so well, but the only thing that I noticed with the hobbyists in Singapore is that they were using it with tree fern fiber or with soil. So the point of doing this plastic backing was so that the soil wouldn't fall out. I haven't seen that many people using purely sphagnum moss. I would love to try tree fern fiber with one of these poles, and just as a growing substrate in general. My friends and I did order some, but we aren't going to be getting it for a little while. And yeah, if you want to know how to construct one of these, go to Alice's page because she makes them better than I do. So anyway, this is sort of the basis of where I got my lazy pole from. The only difference with my lazy pole is that there's no netting. And the reason I didn't do netting was because I'm lazy. And I just knew that after doing lazy poles, I wasn't going to spend the time to make those kinds of moss poles for my plants. I don't know. I don't really enjoy making them. My hands kind of hurt after a while after making those poles, but they are very functional, and I do think I will be making one for my large monstera out in the living room. But for all of my greenhouse plants, these lazy poles work amazing. So I did add a self-watering feature just by using a wick down here. Also keep in mind, this was prototype number 1. I've been testing this out for a little bit just to make sure that I like the design, and I tested different ways to construct it. At first, I did not have these clear plastic strips on it. I just used Velcro, and I wish I had an example, but I've already switched all of mine out. I just used Velcro instead of using these plastic strips, but I didn't like the way that it looked, and I also wanted to be able to enclose and trap in even more of that humidity on the front of the aerial nodes. So I thought, why not just make plastic strips that I can keep reusing for different poles, and that way it's easy to take off, it's easy to put on. And I twiddled with different ideas. The first prototype I ever made, I literally just took these strips and I shoved it inside of the pole, and I think I have a plant where it's like that. Found it. This is my philodendron soderoy. You can see that the plastic is literally just inserted inside of this, and I just pushed it in. But then I just realized that the further up you got, the less secure that this becomes. So it works for the bottom for the most part, but up here it doesn't. So then in my second prototype, I used Velcro to hold in all of these little plastic straps around it, but I did not like the way it looked. It looked a little wonky, and I just didn't like it. So my friends and I kept trying to like think of new ways that we could secure these on. And my friend Jing, she experimented with these little Velcro dots. And one thing that we found was that they're just not very strong. We didn't buy the Velcro brand, but I don't know, I just feel like they're just super flimsy. And so after a day or two of being inside the greenhouse, the adhesive would just peel right off. So that didn't work, which is why this has tape on it, because I just wanted to show you guys sort of the process of getting to the final plastic lazy pole. But yeah, just wanted to show you what this looked like. So that didn't work out. So then this is like the evolution of the lazy moss pole. So I kept with the idea of using the plastic sheet because I do like that it's gonna trap in a lot more of that humidity, but I wanted it to be as like transparent or inconspicuous, frick, what's that word? Is it inconspicuous? Oh crap, my credit card payment's due. Inconspicuous. Okay, so inconspicuous is not a word. Why are you so dumb? Inconspicuous. I knew it didn't sound right, okay? To my credit, I knew it didn't sound right. And I got the right? Inconspicuous. I wanted it to be as inconspicuous as possible. So what I did was still did the plastic sheet, but I just used Velcro ties at the back. And it's been a day now in the greenhouse, and so far so good. This is really on there. It's not going anywhere. I got this idea from my friend Jing, who made a different kind of lazy moss pole, but she secured it this way in the front, and she didn't use plastic sheets. She basically just used the Velcro tie to like hold it closed, and I will insert a photo here of what hers looks like. So if you're more into that look, I think that she has saved a highlight on it on her Instagram. But yeah, we're all kind of just twiddling with these new moss pole ideas. I think we're all pretty much over the typical moss pole, and we just need something different. So it's something that is always evolving and changing, and that's why I say that there might be a part 3 just in case I find something that works a little bit better, or maybe like when comments come in with some suggestions, this can be like a collaborative effort. But this is what it is right now, and I'm happy with it, and I feel like it's functional, so I want to teach you how to make them. I will say off the bat that they are not really lazy poles because they do require a bit of work to make. I feel like I should be calling it the lazy-ish pole because it's not super lazy, but it's kind of lazy, but not really. And also I wanted to give you an update on one of my plants that has been on a lazy pole the longest, which is my Rhaphidophora pertusa. I filmed that a long time ago, but because the prototype of my new moss pole didn't quite work out with the Velcro dots, I scrapped the whole thing, but I did keep the footage of what the pertusa looked like on the lazy pole and sort of like the progress of it. So I'm just gonna include that clip now so that you can just see what it looks like, and then I will bring you back to real time and show you the kind of pole that I got it on. This is my Rhaphidophora pertusa that has been on a lazy pole. it has reverted back because I think it realized it had nothing left to hold on to. And also I think it's like way overdue to getting into soil. So what I'm gonna be doing is taking it off of this lazy pole and getting it onto a plastic pole and also repotting it into some soil. But you can see that, I mean, it activated all of these aerial roots, and these ones in here are really nice and juicy, and it's just gonna be so much easier to remove this from this mesh than it would be if it were in like a regular moss pole. So I'm not too stressed about it, but we definitely got to do something about this today. When you are disassembling a lazy pole, one of the important things you want to do before is make sure that all of this is really nice and wet so that your moss doesn't break. That way you can reuse it without breaking the fibers, and you can make your moss last for a lot longer. It's called a lazy pole for a reason. That was super easy. All right, now that you are back in real time, this is the moss pole that I have it on now. It's not all that different than what I did in the first video. The only thing is I replaced these little straps on them. It looks crazy, but it works. And honestly, once everything is in the greenhouse and like stacked in the exos, these like things sort of just become invisible, and it doesn't look as wonky as it does standing alone. But I am loving these poles. I honestly think that I might switch out all the netting kind to this plastic kind just because it stays damp for longer. Functionality wise, I just feel like this is more my speed. But with the netted lazy poles, I like that it's easier to work with than this. There's already like holes in the netting, so you don't need to punch holes and do all that stuff. And overall, it's still as functional as something like this. So I'll still be using the netted poles, but I think I will be using probably these plastic ones a bit more. I am going to be assembling at least 3 lazy poles in this video, just so you get an idea of the concept and how to assemble it. I'm not the best at explaining, and I just want to make sure that it's as comprehensive as possible without you guys needing to ask too many questions. I know that for sure I want to get my Glorious onto a pole because it's amazing. I got my first mature leaf on it, which literally made my stomach drop out of my, my hoo-ha. And it's telling me that she's ready for a big boy pole, and I'm ready to deliver. So that leaf is still hardening off. I'm gonna give it a few days to really harden off because I am not risking the damage. I will be filming this over the next few days, but I do have 2 other plants that I want to get onto a lazy pole, which is my that's not an Ernestii, my Genovevianum. This is her. She's a big girl. This one is a little bit more complicated. Well, not really, but this is actually growth from an auxiliary bud. So I'm gonna have to get the lazy pole on this side of it because I want these aerial roots to be clinging onto the pole. And then this is the leaf that it grew from. So I think I'm gonna have to chop it because this growth point is all the way out here, and I'm not gonna be able to get both nodes onto the aerial pole onto the lazy pole. So I think I'm actually going to be chopping this into 2 plants, as much as I really don't want to separate the twins. I think that it has to be done. And then who else do I want to get on a pole? I'm not prepared. Oh, my escaletos. So my escaletos are pushing out their second leaves since stem propagating this, and I'm very excited, and I'm just so anxious to get those nice big fenestrations on them. So I want to get it on a pole ASAP, and I think that now is going to be the perfect time. And then for the finale, I will be doing my Glorious, which is going to be a pretty big pole because I don't want to chop it. Before I start the tutorial, just a quick overview of the things you're going to need. These are the plastic sheets that I'm using. I got these from Alice. I think she got it in a pack of 100, and me and a few of our friends were able to like split this, and we all have a very good amount. Like, I really don't think I'm ever gonna need to restock these plastic sheets again, just because I can keep reusing the ones I've used before. I do like the size of this because I can make really tall moss poles, and then I can make really small ones. And this length this way is really good for making the little fasteners. I like this plastic. I know that some people have been using the liners for like dishes and cabinets and stuff that you can get from the dollar store. But the only reason I don't want to use that is because I don't like the color of them usually. Most of them come in like this color, white or clear, and I just prefer the clear look rather than this color. This is my preferred plastic, but obviously just use whatever is available to you, whatever makes sense for you financially. If you want to be resourceful, you can use like old Starbucks cups and stuff like that. I've seen people tag me in their versions of lazy poles using plastic that they already have around the house. So that's been pretty cool. And then along with plastic, you're going to need Velcro tape, Velcro strips. You're gonna need bamboo poles if you are going to add a pole to it, obviously, and then zip ties to secure the pole, string if you're gonna do something that's self-watering. I will link the string that I'm using down below, but I do wanna talk about the wicks just for a sec. This is the only plant that I've had on a lazy pole with a wick so far, and observation is that it only stays really wet until about here. I do have the string going all the way down the bottom of this vessel, so it is absorbing a ton of water, but it doesn't really stay that like damp from the middle of the pole up. Just feeling this string up here, I can feel some moisture coming out of it, but I think it's because I sprayed in there like 2 days ago. So I'm not sure if it's actually because of the wicking, but all of that to say, I'm still kind of trying to twiddle with an idea of how I can make the wick absorb water all the way up as much as it does down here. Still haven't really thought of anything yet. But yeah, this is the cord that I'm using. I think the diameter of this is like 1/4 inch. Someone asked me on Instagram if they could use macrame cord, and I feel like the cord for macrame is very similar, so I don't really understand why you shouldn't be able to use it. I've never used it myself. I don't do macrame, but there's no harm in trying. If you already have the string, just test it out and see if it works, because if you don't need to buy extra string, then that's a yay for you. I'm only gonna be making one self-watering pole in this video for my Glorious. The other 3 plants are just gonna be on regular lazy poles, and then I will call it a day on that. So now let's get into the tutorial. I'm hoping that these vessels are going to be large enough for this, although I am doubting my ability to fit a lazy pole in such a small thing. But we won't know until we try. I am way overdue for getting more vessels at the thrift store. We're just gonna have to make do with what we've got. I'm pretty happy with how much these have rooted. Obviously you can see I propagated it from these little tiny chunks. It actually rooted quite fast. I've heard that esqueletos can be kind of difficult to root, but I didn't really have an issue with mine. The moment of truth. You know what? I think it should be okay, but it is gonna outgrow this little thing pretty quickly, I feel. Let's just do one for now and see how it does. The first thing I'm gonna do is measure out the plastic that's going to be used for this guy. I think I'm gonna be cutting this way because I don't need it to be this long. So this should be enough for at least another, hopefully a few months, unless it does grow super fast. So I'm just going to cut it about this big. And you want to keep in mind that it is going to curve a bit, so you want to do it a little bit bigger so it's not flat. I wish I had like a really big paper cutter to cut these super straight, but I don't. A little bit on the smaller side, but it's gonna fit pretty well into this vessel. So the first thing that I do is I create the pinch using Velcro tape, just because it's kind of hard to assemble if it's not already pinched in, especially on the smaller poles. I actually find larger poles easier to assemble than these little tiny ones. And you're gonna do one at the top and one at the bottom. Just so you have the curve that you want. And then you're gonna figure out where you're going to plant your little guys. So I want mine right here. And I wanna make sure that these auxiliary buds on the new stem is going to be the one touching the moss. So I'm going to put it up against it like this probably. I actually want the curve to be a little bit tighter, so I'm gonna fix the Velcro. The next thing I will do is make the strips for this. I'm only gonna need 2 strips on this moss pole, one to hold in the plant and one to keep this top cinched in because I just don't like the look of the Velcro up here. This one is a bit thick, so I'm gonna just cut this in half. And then I'm gonna cut this into, I think I'll start with cutting it in half. You can do this however you want, but I prefer that the plastic not be overlapping like this. I kind of want there to be a slight gap between them because it's easier to fish through the Velcro after. So I'm just gonna cut off maybe about this much. And I will cut my other one to the same size. Is perfect. Then you're going to take your hole puncher and punch a hole on both sides. Once you are at this point, the next thing you're going to do is take a Velcro tie like this, and you're going to cut it into 3 equal pieces. And I know that sounds crazy because it's super thin, but you need to be able to string this through your hole punched hole. So I'm just gonna start by cutting 1 strip at the very end. And it doesn't need to be long, so just about like that. And then I'll cut the other 2 in half. So you should have 3 little pieces like this. What you'll do is start at the top. My little method here has been to squeeze it like this so that both of the holes are exposed. And then just fishing it through like this. And then you'll join them here. Ah! There we go. Then you can take this top part off, and then we'll do the same thing to the bottom. It's much easier if you assemble it on the ground like this, but I'm trying to like give you the best angle as possible, but it's quite difficult. So I'm just going to assemble it the way I normally would at home. You can assemble these with or without the plant in it first. What you can actually do is just not put this one in yet, but leave the one on top. Kind of like, I'll just do it right now. So you can do it this way where just the top is cinched like this. I would move it closer to the center, and then you can pot this way, get it in, and then do it last, or you can do it first. I've done it both ways. I'm still not really sure which method I prefer, but I've assembled it both ways. So I will assemble it this way for the sake of this video, and then I'll assemble it a different way for the next Esqueleto. So what you'll do is just place your pole down at the bottom. You want it hitting the bottom, and I always put mine towards the back of the pot. And then I'm gonna fill with the substrate, but I think that I'm actually ready to get this into soil now, so I'm going to do that. Once your substrate is in, then you can start packing some moss inside of the pole. I don't like packing my moss. Oh, look how fluffy this piece is. It's delicious. I don't like packing my moss too tight because I want the roots that are gonna grow from it to be able to move around, and I don't want it to be too dense. So I always go a little bit lighter on this sphagnum moss, which is another perk of these poles because you're just not using as much moss as you would on a normal pole. So once all the moss that you want is in, then you're just gonna go back and assemble the bottom of the pole. When you put your poles at the edge of the pot, you're gonna find that there's a lot of empty space in the back. I honestly just try and keep it as tucked in as possible to the back part, but I will fill all of this with substrate to keep it nice and stable. So here is my finished pole. I wanted to give you guys a different view of it so you could see all of it. So what I'm gonna do is just take my little squirt bottle and kind of just clean up some of that moss because it is very static, and you'll find that things can get kind of messy, but as you keep watering your poles and stuff, it eventually gets clean. Let's give you some close-up views of the assembly. So that is number 1, and now we'll move on to Esqueleto number 2. This one is a bit bigger than the other, but not by that much. I think the root system might be larger as well. And I'm not sure if it's gonna fit in the same size vessel. Nope, it's pushing it, it's too small. Crapola. This one isn't pretty, but it'll work. I do plan on keeping this one in my EXO anyway, so yeah, let's just do this. Before I do anything, I'm going to cut my materials again. Got my pole, I have my 2 fasteners, and my 2 Velcro strips. So now I'm gonna assemble this in a little bit of a different order just to show you guys a different way of doing it. Whoa, where did it go? It's invisible. Oh no. Okay, so what I'll do again is use the Velcro ties to create my curve up at the top and also at the bottom. Okay, so I'm gonna take off this bottom one, slide it all the way down, and then I'm gonna take my plant. Obviously you won't be able to assemble all plants like this, especially if there's multiple leaves and stuff, but for smaller plants, it's totally doable. All right, I want it to be right about here, so now I'm just going to fill the substrate. And then now I'm going to pack it with moss. It helps if you slide this one as high as you can go so that it's a little bit wider where you're packing. So up close now of the second moss pole. I wish a sparkling water company would sponsor me. Except I'm a nobody in the YouTube world, so why would they? Hi, Pudge. Did you want to say hello to your friends really quick? Come here. I bet they miss you. Come here. Oh. Does anyone know if pets get seasonal depression or can get depression from you? Because Pudge has been so sad for 2 days. He's not sick or anything. He's just like super under the weather. He's really like clingy. All he wants to do is be with me and wants me to hold him all the time, and he just looks so sad. I took him for an extra long walk this morning. I literally let him sniff every single bush he wanted. I was out there for like 40 minutes in the cold, but I wanted him to be happy. But they say that when you let a dog sniff around and like just let them sniff whatever they want, it's good for their mental health. So we take that very seriously here, don't we? Don't we, Pudge? All right, so how are you guys all feeling about this poll? Some of you are probably like, what the heck are you doing? And some of you might be intrigued. I know that this isn't for everyone. You might love your regular moss poles and do what works for you. That's what I always say. I just need to take a breather because I'm losing steam fast. On to the last one for the day until I do the glorious in a few days. So let's wrap this up. Let's try to get cleaned up here a little bit. I'm going to do the Alice method that I learned in our collab. I'm telling you guys, that girl is a genius. Moving on to this gentle giant. This is a philodendron genevieveanum in case you missed it earlier. You're probably noticing that this pond looks a little different, and that's because this is homemade pond. I think this is the pond that Jing made or Alice made. Anyway, so this pond is still really nice and clean, so I'm just gonna reuse it. Homemade pond is beautiful. I love the addition of the coarse perlite and the orchiata. And these roots are beautiful as well. We don't really need to take off all of this pond because I'm just gonna get it back into pond anyway. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna be separating this node from it. So we're gonna go ahead and chop, but I just need to sterilize my scissors. Does anyone know what this is? I swear, I used these like once when I first got them, and I'm not sure what the heck I was doing, but it like stained it black. I'm going to just chop it right here. I don't want to accidentally cut the other petiole. Okay. Beautiful. I have this one, but it's a little taller than I wanted it to be. Although it is a larger plant. No, it's not speaking to me. Maybe I just do one of these. Yeah, let's just do that. Okay. This one's gonna be taller, so I'm gonna be cutting this way instead of this way like I did last time. This looks straight. Can I just say, do not use your shears as an all-purpose scissor like I do. I'm a bad example at a lot of things, and this is one of them. Don't be like me. Got our pole. Perfect size. And now I need my strips. I'm basically just using this as a guide to get straight lines, and I don't always do this. I usually just eyeball it, and if it's crooked, then it's crooked, and I don't care. But if you are a perfectionist, then obviously you can use rulers and make sure everything's all measured out, but I just really cannot. I can't and I won't. I'm just doing it for this video so that I can be a good example in at least one area of this video. Wiping this off reminds me of like my elementary school days and like even into high school when, you know, they'd use the laminator projector. Laminator projector, is that what it's called? And my favorite part was always when they would write on it with the pen and then just wipe it away. Oh, so satisfying. When I was younger, I really wanted my own projector. And for what? Oh, jeez, peace. Now to make sure that the size of my strips are gonna work. I think they might be a bit long, so I'll need to trim it down. Yeah, I'm gonna trim down just a little bit. I don't want to curve this one too much on this plant, so I think this is gonna be okay. Even if it overlaps a little bit, that's fine. So I'm gonna keep this and just punch some holes. telling ya, it's not that lazy. It's like kinda lazy. The kinda lazy pull. Okay. Can we talk about how pretty my sister is? Why does my sister look like that and I look the way that I look? Not fair. I demand a refund. Anyway, I'm trying out these asteroid size perlite with my Pon and Leca mix because I want more aeration in my passive hydro plants so that the myco has a bit more air and oxygen to work its magic. But I just find them kind of hard to disperse between the pond because obviously the pond is gonna float, or not float. The pond is gonna sink below the perlite since it's denser. Too much science for me. I feel like you just have to be very strategic in where you place the perlite. Oh, I forgot to get my pole in. Whoops. Wait, I want it like that. Because I want the back of these aerial roots touching all of that moss. Where are my ties? Did I throw them away? Oh no. Where is it? Didn't I cut 2 strips? Okay. I guess I didn't. Before I unfasten it, I'm just gonna get the bottom stabilized because I can see it's a little bit crooked. It's kind of moving around a bit, which means I don't have enough substrate packed around the base of the pole. So you want it to be like this, like it's very sturdy. It's not gonna move around. You can just keep packing. Here's where we're at with the pole. Everything is assembled. This is gonna pop out just a little bit because my fasteners aren't as tight as my Velcro. So let's just see how much it gives. That wasn't bad. The last thing that I'm gonna do on this one specifically is get a thick piece of Velcro around the base because I don't want all of this moss to fall out and I don't really want to have to cut another fastener just for this. And we are done. Let me give you a far away shot of it. Sorry, I'm not sure if that's too far now, but I just love how you just can't really see what's going on. I'm looking at the side angle here and I can see it's tilting back a little bit, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of more pon in the back. I'm pretty pleased with how this one came out. I've got the aerial root covered, or the aerial node covered, where the new growth is, and all of the roots that were growing really well in pon is now in a super chunky pon mix. I have to sneeze. I am loving how many air pockets are in this substrate, and my roots have a little bit of space to breathe. And overall, I think this was a very successful transplant. That's it for now. I will check in with you in a few days when my Glorious is ready to be repotted. Hi, I am back. It's been a few days now and I am so excited to show you what this leaf looks like. It is by no means the most glorious I've ever seen, but there is a certain amount of satisfaction that I feel from working so hard to try and size this thing up. Only because, like, I struggled a bit, right? Like, the plant came with fairly decent sized leaves. I would say the leaves were about this size, maybe a little bit bigger. All of the original leaves have been chopped off already because I did propagate the bottom like crazy. But, you know, I started to get these nice big leaves on them. They were attaching to the pole and I was like, oh man, we're gonna get big in no time. And then I just kept sort of getting like around the same size leaves. Like you can see, for example, we have this size leaf, which is pretty, like, it's like about as big as my palm. And then the next leaf was much smaller. So it's kind of been like a back and forth thing with big leaves and then small leaves, or just kind of staying around the same size. But the one that came the most recently, which is got burned by my grow lights, was this one. I think I featured it in a favorites video, and this one is the newest leaf, and I'm in awe. Like, this is about the average size of the leaves on this plant, and then in comparison to this big one that's still, like, you can see how sort of floppy it is. It's still not done expanding. It's gotten a lot wider in the last 2 days. And I just can't, I am obsessed with this plant. I love it so much and I'm just so proud of how far we've come. I'm going to try my best to not damage this new leaf while we repot. I would say that maybe in about 2 days it's gonna be like fully hardened off, but I'm gonna be gentle. I'm kind of seeing the situation that's happening at the top of the pole, and I want to avert a potential crisis before it gets bad, because now these top nodes, which is great, it's rooting into the pole, but we have discussed why I do not like roots going into these kinds of poles, because I'm probably going to have to dismantle this entire thing. I'm not going to be cutting this plant. I want to keep the entire root system that it has to sustain this growth and whatever comes after. The stem is getting really big on this. So yeah, it is in soil and I am going to keep it in soil. My guess is that it can probably fit in the same size pot. If not, I might go a little bit bigger, but I kind of like my philodendrons being a little bit more root bound. I did air layer a bit here. I haven't uncovered whatever is under here in months, so we will figure out what's going on in there together. But yeah, just kind of one final look before the moss pole. I'm just really excited to give this baby some TLC because she deserves it. I'm going to have to show my face in this part, unfortunately, because this plant is so big, it's gonna be too hard to do things without showing my face. So here's my face for everyone who doesn't believe I have a face. Let's uncover what is under here first. You might notice that my breathing is slightly heavier today. That anxiety day, not really sure why, considering I didn't have like that stressful of a day or anything, but yeah, I'm just taking some heavy breaths today, so try to ignore it. What is this situation? Why did I put pawn? I'm something else. Okay, so here's the stitch. Honestly, I think what I did was grab whatever soil mix I had and I just packed it in there. This must have been one of the ones that had pawn. Really rooty, but it's super in here. So I think, okay, an old vessel here. I'm just gonna throw whatever trash and scraps. Got all the sheath that I need to take off on the back. Where do I start? It's like super attached to this thing. Oh, good. Okay, so the top has not rooted too much. I was able to just pull it out pretty easily. And now I'll have some nice aerial roots to work with for the new lazy pole. Same with this node. But we've got a situation here. So what I'm gonna, okay, I think, okay. Sorry, I'm feeling very overwhelmed today. Fudge. I need to empty out this soil, and this thing is just coming out of the bottom already. It has been due for a repot. Come on. Oh my. Okay. Well, I didn't know it was that much. I'm watching this new leaf flail around. I'm like, I make a lot of bad decisions, and I feel like this is one of them. It's just, here's the thing. I moved my schedule around a little bit. I have some sponsored posts coming up, and some of my deadlines were switched on me last minute. So this video that was gonna go out a little bit later now has to go out in 2 days. Oh, do not like that sound. Hang on, little buddy. Okay, so we do have a little bit of rot at the bottom where it was kind of sitting in some water. Chop it? Yeah, I'll just chop it. Ah. Aw, seriously? Ah! Oh my gosh, I'm so frazzled today. Yeah, I think I'll be able to get it in the same size pot because the root system is not, that just flung at my face. The root system is not large enough that I would need to size it up to a 10-inch. So I'm gonna keep it in an 8-inch, and fingers crossed it'll be able to live in there for a while. This soil feels very sandy. Why? Oh no, I broke it. Okay, that's not good. Be very careful. Okay, here is where the issue is. We are super connected down here. I am so happy to not have to deal with this bull crap anymore. It blows my mind that it took me so long to figure out that I hated moss bowls, like the standard moss bowl design. Why did that take so long? I'm just going to cut this whole thing open. Sorry, I have to give you a different angle because the leaves are like blocking. Okay, I don't know where to start. I'm gonna have to take a shower after this. I'm just like, there's soil everywhere. I could feel it in my shirt. Why is it in my shirt? Ugh. Frick! Zip ties are off. And now I can remove this moss. And okay. Oh man, it's in here. I'm just gonna cut it. This. Wait. My brain can't math. This is honestly such a waste of materials. Like, how and why? Okay. Ugh. Oh my gosh, gosh, I'm gonna have a lot of cleaning to do. This is one thing I hate about doing YouTube is the cleanup. I know, woe is me. My brain cannot comprehend this math right now. Oh, there's a tie. Okay. This. You're free. Okay, geez, that took way too many of my brain cells, and I only have one brain cell, so you can imagine how painful. Okay, so it is finally free from that stupid moss pole. Oh, it's leaning. This thing is heavy, you guys. She is not playing around. So this root system is quite large. Here's what I'm thinking. I think that I'm gonna need 2 of these. Oh my gosh, it's so dirty now, but it's okay because I'm going to just hose it down. I think I'm gonna do a 2 plastic sheet. Is that 2 times? Because I'm gonna start it right here. About right here. No, it does need to be 2. All right, so first, if you guys are getting anxiety about how messy this is, imagine how I feel. Whoa. I guess if you need a tall lazy pole, here's your tutorial on how to make a tall one, because I just made one of these yesterday. Wait, what's today? Sunday? It's Monday? I just made one on Saturday. So I'm first going to cut my pole to the thickness that I want. I think I'm gonna do half of the sheet. This is how I'm going to connect the plastic sheet to a bamboo stake. So I'm gonna eyeball where the center is. It's about right here. So from the center, you're gonna mark 2 dots on either side. So I'm eyeballing. Gonna go like this. And then you see where the line overlaps down here. I'm just gonna go straight down and do 2 dots here. So basically you'll have 2 dots on both sides. You'll take your hole punch. I don't know if it's gonna reach, but you'll just do it as far in as you can go. So mine is barely just touching the dot, so I'm just gonna punch as far as I can to where this dot is. And then I'm gonna do the same to the other one. And then do the exact same thing on the other piece of plastic. And what this is going to do is basically allow you to put a bamboo stake right here along the center to join them and zip tie them in. Unfortunately, I don't have any more of the super long bamboo stakes, like the 4-foot ones, but I have 2 smaller ones that I am just going to attempt to use. I'm going through both holes, both set of holes, so that both of the sheets are connected, like that. And then I'll place my bamboo stake, and then I'm basically just gonna use this to attach it. So if you're doing a super long one like this, I would recommend that you do the same sort of hole punch thing up here to stabilize it in there, or else there's a chance that it might be harder to assemble later because this stick is going to keep flopping down. So at least it'll stabilize it. So I'm just going to shut the heck up and just do it and show you. Okay, so I am seat belted here, here, and now I just need to secure myself down here. So now I want to attach these little flappy flaps. You can take some zip ties and also connect them here. You can use Velcro, you can staple it, whatever you want to do. I'm just going to use these zip ties because I ordered this toolkit thing and it came with an absurd amount of zip ties, so I just have an excess of them. So I'm just going to use some of these. So again, use your hole punch and just punch through both sides. It's funny because, like, yeah, this is called the lazy moss pole, but it's really not that lazy. But I will say that it's definitely, like, once you get the hang of it and you're not doing a tutorial and trying to explain yourself, it is way easier than assembling the moss pole that I just dismantled. And, like, I just feel like the payoff is worth it, like, for what you get and, like, the functionality of it. I would much rather spend the time making this than making these kinds of moss poles. All right, this is the next size up that I have. I think it's, yeah, humongous, seriously. As much as I don't want it to be true, I actually think this is going to be a much better size for this plant. First things first, I'm going to fill a little bit with substrate to get it in here. I'm going to crack open my new bag of Myco. And this is just the Dynamyco brand, and it is linked in my Amazon shop that's in the description. This one looks a bit different than the one I've been using, which is a black color. I'm just going to sprinkle that around the root system. My pole is going to be right here. Wow, this pole is so dirty. Here. So here is where I'm at. I have a temporary bend using Velcro down at the bottom. And now I'm actually just going to be filling with my substrate so that I can stabilize the plant a little bit better. And then I'm going to take a Velcro tie and I'm going to cinch it in over here. I probably should have done that first. It would have been easier, I think, to fill my substrate, but that's fine. And now I am going to fill it with some more soil. By the way, I was going to make this a self-watering pole, but I kind of changed my mind last minute, and I think just where it is in the tent doesn't really make sense to do self-watering, just because I was going to have like a little cup next to it and just fill it with water. But I think I'm going to do that with another plant instead, and I'll do it in a repot with me. So sorry if you were looking forward to that during this video, but all you have to do is string a wick through it, and that's about it. I'm not going to fill it all the way just yet. I'm going to cinch it up at the top. We are fully working on the floor now because of the sheer size of this thing. We are coming to an end. I'm sitting in a pile of dirt and I'm getting anxious. And does it bother me that my pole is on one side of the pot? Yes. Am I going to redo it? Hell no. So now we pack with moss. This is why you don't want to fill your pot all the way, because if you are going to lean it to pack the moss, all of it's going to fall out. So try to not fill it all the way just yet. And I'm actually just going to be sticking with the Velcro ties on this lazy pole. Like I mentioned, I'm not going to be doing the plastic strip. There's a big internodal spacing right here, so I think I am going to add a plastic just to hold that moss in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tuck it in this way, like that, inside of the pole, and then I'll wrap the Velcro around it. So this is another way that you can fasten these clear strips to enclose more humidity without having to do the thing where you tie it in the back and you cut, like everything I did in the beginning where it's like overly complicated to make it look pretty for no reason. Yeah, that's another option. You don't always get opportunities like this to be able to just tuck it in, because like you can see down here, because the internodes are a lot tighter, it's almost impossible for me to stick a strip that's like any thicker than this. So for me, it's not even worth it. But for such a large internode like this, I just made the call to add this little plastic to it. It's up to you whether you want to fill the moss all the way or if you'd like to just do it as it's growing. For me, I've just been sort of adding moss as it grows and not really worrying about it too much. But like we did with Aaron's, we did a little plastic sheet to be tucked into the top, and then we just filled the whole thing with moss. Now that the moss pole is assembled, I'm going to just fill in the rest of the substrate. Look at that, there's soil and dirt everywhere. I haven't even cooked dinner yet, and it's like almost 9. I'm stressed to wash these pans again. Here's some up close shots of what it looks like. Sorry, there's so many leaves, it's really hard to give you a good view. Here's the back of it. I can't even get the whole top in the frame, but I have moss filled to right here, and as it keeps growing, I'll just add more. But I'm really happy. I just feel like this is exactly what it needed to keep going, and we're just gonna see how big this thing gets. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful. I know it's not really a lazy pole, not like the other one was a lazy pole, but I'm just calling it the lazy-ish pole, kind of lazy pole. But I am just so sold on them. I love doing all kinds of lazy poles with the net, with the plastic, and I've already been able to reuse 2 lazy poles that I made before with like 0 issues, and it was just so fast, didn't waste any materials. And I feel like I have stepped into a new chapter of plant parenthood, and I will never go back to these kinds of poles again. So So anyway, I think that is it for me. I hope you guys found some use from this video. If you do try one of these poles, let me know how you like it. Let me know how it works for you. Again, I know this isn't going to be for everyone, but this is probably what you're going to be seeing from now on this channel. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up because it helps Pudge and I's visibility a lot on YouTube. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching again. Thank you for continuing to come back. Thank you for all the likes, all the love, all the comments, and I will see you in the next one.